Greetings from Myrtle Beach in sunny South Carolina. It's a beautiful spring day and I'm on the beach and I'm changing things up a little bit today. I'm not running, I'm just taking a nice walk as I talk with you. So this is episode 4, and episode 4 deals with pacing. We've already looked at the motivation for why you would run a 100-mile and how important that is to finishing. And then we also looked at race selection and making sure that you stack the odds in your favor for completion. So today, let's talk a little bit about pacing. And I think pacing for me was a huge lesson. And I think a lot of people who are first-time completers or first-time attempters at the 100 would probably agree that pacing at the beginning, especially in the first 40 miles, is very critical to being strong as you get into the final 40 miles of the race. And there's a lot of science behind that as well. The worst thing that you can do in running and training for a 100-miler is to think of it as a very long marathon. It's nothing like that. The physiology is so different when you compare the two distances. You know, on the one hand, you've got 26.2 miles for a standard marathon, and of course the 100-miler, which is several marathons deep plus. So the physiology goes something like this. You have glycogen stored up in your muscles over time, and you get pretty efficient at producing glycogen and storing increasing amounts in your muscles as you train. And so, you know, obviously we want to taper before we enter our big race, and so that we have as much glycogen stored up as possible. And glycogen is important because it gives you that quick release of energy. It burns quickly, it's efficient, and it really makes you feel strong as you run, right? And, you know, usually, you know, depending on how intensely you run, you've got anywhere from 2 to 4 hours of glycogen. The more intense that you run, it's closer to 2 hours. The less intense you run, you might get something over 3 hours. But after that, the physiological change in terms of how you derive your energy starts to change. And you may say, well, you know, I'm just going to eat a lot, I'm going to carb up, I'm going to do all kinds of things to augment that glycogen. But glycogen just doesn't come back at you and get stored as fast and efficiently as you need it to in a 100-miler. You can get away with it on your marathon, but in the 100-miler, once it's gone, it's pretty much gone, because your body is your brain is prioritizing survival. And so as things change, as glycogen gets depleted, and as you start burning fat, which is much more inefficient in terms of energy production, your body is now making sure that it is taking care of your organs and prioritizing that survival. Your blood is obviously flowing to priority areas, and because it wants to get oxygen to your muscles. So a lot of things start slowing down. You can eat as much as you want, or as much as you can, and we certainly recommend you do, but the absorption and digestion and the conversion is just not there like it is you know, when at the early stages of your run. So you are constantly at deficit, and you're constantly declining in the amount of stored refueling that you have. And unfortunately, for many of us, it just gets harder and harder as you run, 60 miles, 70 miles, 80 miles to catch up in any way. So you're basically sitting there the last 20 miles from 80 to 100, just hanging on for dear life and trying to survive. And that's reality. So if that sounds like a marathon to you, good luck, because it's nothing like running a marathon. Now, I made that mistake in my first attempt at a 100. I ran it like a marathon, similar pacing, maybe backed off a little bit, and made it through 40 miles. My first 20 was right on track, and then my second 20-mile loop, I just crashed. I had no idea what I was in for hitting that 40-mile mark, and I just couldn't come out for more. The second attempt I made quite a few adjustments, and that second taught me a lot. Although it still took me over 35 hours on my feet. I did finish it. I was a little bit disappointed, but I learned a lot from that. And in that race, in my first 40, I backed off my pace by about 1 minute per mile. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually quite a high percentage to back off. And I was able to finish, but I did really struggle from mile 60 to 100. In my last attempt, which was also successful, I backed off another 1 minute per mile, so 2 minutes slower than what I went out in my first 100, 2 minutes a mile slower, and that paid off handsomely. I was probably about maybe 40 minutes slower after the first 20 miles, and compared to the marathon pace. And I repeated that in the second 20 mile, and that put me quite a ways behind my pace from the unsuccessful attempt. But I still felt relatively strong at the 80-mile mark compared to what I felt like in the previous 2 years. So there's a lot to be said about pace. And again, just to summarize, you only have so much glycogen. You only have so much ability of your body to adapt to the stresses it's under. And you've got to use those reserves very wisely to stretch them out as deep into the race as you can, because it's great if you could run at a similar pace the whole way, but the reality is that you won't be able to. So here's a comparison of the two races that I did, that I completed successfully, the 100 milers. In the first video, you'll see, shows me at the 60-mile mark. And you can see I'm quite tired. I'm putting a good face on it. But you can absolutely tell that my resources are pretty much gone. And in that race, I completely collapsed at mile 88, if you recall from a previous episode, and was able to finish. But it did take me a long time. So yes, 60 miles in my first successful completion. I'm at the 60-mile mark. It's heading toward, 10:30, a little after. So I've been going for over 13 hours. Sorry about the lighting, it's kind of squirrely. I'm taking a decent break here at 62, coming up 2 miles, and feeling certainly tired, but I feel decent. So at this point, somewhat optimistic. Yeah, so you can see I am putting a good face on that, but yeah, clearly I am just about out of gas. I had to dig deep on that one with motivation and all the other lessons I learned. But yeah, so this next video that you'll see is me at mile 80 in this last go around completing the 100-mile in Las Vegas. And you can see, you don't see me in this race, but you can tell from my voice, I've got a lot more energy, and I seem to be a lot more hopeful. And of course, it didn't hurt that the sun was just coming up. So here's that video, and you can compare. So we're about to hit 80 miles, about 130 kilometers, 136. And you can see the sun's about coming up. Beautiful out here in the desert in Las Vegas. And so we're still standing. We've been through the night. We're almost 22 hours in. You know, so we can see the end now. I mean, still a lot to do, but it just seems more reasonable right now. So as you can see, my mental state then and the related physical state was very different in that at the 80-mile mark, even compared to the 60-mile mark in the previous race. And that's just backing off an additional minute per mile in the first 40 miles. So it made a big difference. And when I trained for this next, end of the year 100-miler, I'm probably going to back off at least 30 seconds from last year and hopefully run more comfortably or further into the race. So the lesson learned here is be very careful. If you're a first-time completer, at least you're hoping to be, that you don't fall into the marathon mind kind of focus. That this is a very different animal for physiological reasons, aside from the psychological reasons, and I blame that on a lot of the training programs that tell you that you really don't need to do more than 35 miles in your training program. And, that being your longest training run of the prep period. I disagree with that. I know a lot of these trainers will say, well, after that, you're just damaging your body. The problem is it doesn't really give you an opportunity to get a sense of what it's like to get into that depletion level where you've got to find other strategies. And you're still very close to what it might feel like for a marathon. So you still think that you can run it like a marathon. And it's only when you go out there and test that 50-miler and that 62-miler, and even if you're going to take 12 months and delay your running the 100-miler just to have those experiences, do it. Don't do them too closely together because you will get injured. But get that experience because you will then feel, especially with the 62, the 100K, you will feel what it feels like. And just imagine at that point that you still have to do another 38 miles. So my test for you, and I use that for myself too, was that if I could do the 62 and I still felt like I could run another 10 miles after that, yeah, it's going to be painful, but if I still felt like I could do it, then I was ready for the 100. And I did that last year, and I ran my best 100-miler a couple months later. So if you can take the 12 months and test yourself at that 50-mile and 62-mile and see what you feel like and see if you have to make adjustments. I guarantee you it'll shake you out of the illusion that you can run it like a marathon. Well, happy trails out there, and I will see you in episode 5. Don't forget to subscribe so you can follow the rest of the series.